everything happens for a reason. Give somebody who's grieving one reason why the passing of their loved one is justified. Just trust God. I, for example, was wondering why I prayed so much, but my mom still had to pass. So it was the wrongest time for anyone to tell me, just trust God. I had just moved from being my mother's daughter to being her sister at the time that I lost her. I had a very interesting 2022, and the icing on the cake was losing my mom. I've mentioned it on here before. In fact, the responses that I got inspired me to make this video. I was actually surprised at how common the subject is, because it's a semi-taboo thing to discuss. You're almost expected to stay hidden when you're going through grief. There's that place that even if you talk about it, you must not get to. If you've ever lost someone, you know how the cultural responses can come across. Just things like, everything happens for a reason, you need to move on. Just trust God, and may God give you the strength to bear the grief. What is wrong with comments like that? In my case, it was a time when I didn't want anyone to tell me about what God could do or what God didn't do. I had lived my whole life as a Christian, believing, praying, doing. Christians know what I'm talking about. And even for non-Christians, you may have a God that you believe in. And I believe the same thing will apply, because it's an emotional subject more than it is a subject of faith in the light of the conversation that I'm currently having. Even if it was one of faith, it wasn't one that I could see at that time. I, for example, was wondering why I prayed so much, but my mom still had to pass. And so it was the wrongest time for anyone to tell me, just trust God, or may God give you the strength to bear it. I didn't want to hear what God could do, even though now that I'm back to believing, I know what God can do. And I got so much, especially from the body of Christ. It was almost like they didn't know any other way. They didn't know how to be emotional. Let's talk about move on. Family members and friends say move on when they feel like they've watched you be a shadow of yourself for far too long, and they're just wanting you to carry on with life and not sit and sulk and get to a place where you're regretting why so much time has gone and you've done nothing because you just sat there crying or sat there grieving. But I don't think anyone wants to move on from someone that they love. I didn't want to move on from my mom. I didn't know any life outside of my mom. My mother taught me how to speak. My mother taught me how to be confident. My mother taught me how to pray. There's almost nothing that I can get to that my mother didn't teach. So that's not somebody that I want to move on from. The memories that I have with her, I want to keep and cherish forever. And that's not a bad thing. That's what's wrong with asking someone who's grieving to move on. And also put yourself in their shoes. By God's grace, may you not go anytime soon, but would you like someone that you've poured all your heart and mind and love into to just move on from you when you go on? No, you'd hope that they can continue your legacy. You'd hope that they miss you. You'd hope that they're relishing the time that you've spent with them. And even if my mom is not hoping for that where she is, I want to do it. I love remembering everything that my mom was. I think that it still plays a role in, for example, how I carry myself. Sometimes moving on is even forced. For example, I have people telling me, why do you need to go to Nigeria to attend your mother's burial? I thought that it was the last honor that I could give, but they were trying to help me so bad to get over it that I missed out on that, and I had to again process, along with my grief, the regret of not paying the last. So just let the course of events carry on naturally as you remain there for them emotionally. And then there is everything happens for a reason. No grieving person can think of any reasonable reason why the person had to go. It was the most horrible thing to hear, because give me one reason why my mom had to go. Give somebody who's grieving one reason why the death or the passing of their loved one is justified. That's what you imply when you say that everything happens for a reason. And while the statement may be true, the person who's grieving is unable to comprehend it at that time. What's happening is that you're trying so hard to meet logic with emotions. Grief is an emotional experience, And only emotional help can help, not logical ones. So I find that it's a case of good intentions, bad knowledge on how to. It's also perhaps a thing of just what culture has taught us so far. I think it won't be newsflash to anyone who's gone through grief. They're the things that will have them thinking they don't understand how I feel, and that's not what you want to do. And the number two problem is that only the person who's going through the grief can tell you how to be there for them, because although grief is a universal experience, it differs from person to person. So it's time for you to ask questions like, how can I be there for you? What can I do to make things better? And don't force it. There's already, again, because it's such a taboo subject, they're most likely not going to be willing to open up as to their needs. So throw it in here and there. Don't push it, because then they'll know that you're not pitying them. Otherwise, they won't open up to you. So just let them tell you how to be there for them if you really want to be there for them. Moving away from society to whoever may be experiencing grief and needing to hear from someone who understands how they feel. I may not know exactly what you're going through or how you're feeling, but I can promise you that this is going to be a heart-to-heart. I just want to suggest to you to allow yourself feel what you feel. Most of the pain that you will feel as someone who's going through grief will come from the resistance with what you feel. So it feels so wrong to still be crying after a year. It feels so wrong to talk about the disease all the time. It feels so wrong to not be able to move on when that's what everyone else suggests to you as the right thing to do. It feels so wrong. It feels so wrong. And so when you miss the person, when you are angry, rather than allow yourself to miss the person, you hide yourself. You hide how you feel. You put up a front. By the way, I'm sharing these things because these were the things that I did. But fast forward to a few weeks after that period where I was sort of writing my experience and deciding I was going to talk about it, I realized that I got more pain from resisting my emotions than I got from the experience of grief itself. Because now you constantly have to battle with the weakness of not being able to move on. Whereas it's not exactly a weakness, it's just what it is. One time, what I felt was even jealousy, because my mom had taught me how to sing, for example, and I'm in the choir. And we used to part each other, we sing different parts to make harmonies. And I had seen a mother and child singing in church during choir rehearsals. And it wasn't even jealousy in a bad way. It was just, wow, I used to do this with my mom and I can't do it anymore. I was going to hold back the tears on my way home on the bus, but I just let it drop. And the relief, by the time I got home, I said, well, she's put it in me and I can still sing to God. I can still sing in the choir. That's a beautiful thing. It was such a shift. And I'm talking about the shift in result, in how I felt, in comparison to when I'd quickly try and quench what I was feeling and criticize myself. Go, you can't be feeling that. You can't, it's wrong to. Grief brings all of this, and the only way to get past it is to feel it and process it. So allow yourself. Sometimes people will try to put their experience of grief on you and want you to handle your grief the same way. And it's just not the same. You didn't have the same experiences as them. You didn't lose the same person that they lost. It's a different experience altogether. So that's another reason you absolutely have to allow yourself. One moment you can be feeling very happy, you've managed to rack up some strength to move on. The next, you can be feeling a little down. You could be in tears, it could be anything else. It's not like losing a job. When you lose a job, you can get another job. When you lose an item, however expensive, if you manage to save up again or you get a good job, you can raise the money, or family members give you some money, you can and you can replace it. But when you lose a human being that is never coming back to life, there's no replacement, there's no healing, there's just a way to process the emotion, which you later find as soon as you accept that you have lost someone. It is what it is. You feel this way, it's heavy, the healing has begun. My number 2 point will be selective. Be selective, because not everyone who means well, unfortunately, not everyone who means well will create the atmosphere of meaning well. I've come to realize that someone can love you and want to be there for you desperately with their emotions, but do the exact opposite with their actions. People don't necessarily always project what they mean to project. That is why you're allowed to be selective. I'm not saying that it's time to push away family members and friends who are trying to be there, but no one can teach you how to process your grief. So when you find relatability, for example, I randomly texted a celebrity online. If she allows me, when I post this video, I'll tag her. But I had lost my mom to the same situation that she lost her husband to. And nobody in my life seemed to understand, even the people who meant well. And I have people who mean well for me. I know that I'm very loved, but unfortunately, the whole time I just kept feeling like nobody really understands what I'm going through. All these people are just telling me things that they need to say, they need to do, because it's what culture has taught them. But perhaps someone who experienced the same type of pain, who was a Christian lady, I'll make sense to her, she'll make sense to me. I sent her a message. She shared her telephone number with me. We talked, and it was the first time in the whole journey, it was the first time that I felt like, wow, I wasn't making things up in my head. Somebody actually understands me. You will find as you progress, through the words that they say, through the experiences that they share, your heart will naturally tell you around whom you will find that atmosphere of healing versus the otherwise. That's going to bring some massive stability to your journey. The third and final point that I'd like to make to you who may be experiencing grief or just even heavy emotional pain is to move. And whether this makes sense will depend on what stage of grief you are. And I say this because, again, as I started with, moving wouldn't have made sense to me at some point, but I'm now at the point where I can accommodate logic. I'm not saying to move on from the past, but more often than not, acting in a certain light can trigger the emotions to pick up with what you're doing. Music is a very great example. There are songs, there's High Life for people in Ghana, Nigeria. There are songs that can trigger some sort of emotions, but you have to play the songs for the emotions to be triggered. And that's just an example. In general, I'm talking about just moving, not getting away from the things that you love, not getting away from the people that you love, just moving, whatever that means, whatever that is, whatever that was before the grief, just move. It could even be, for example, in my case, just still attending. When I tell you, I don't know if I mentioned it before that I didn't want to go to church, but going to church was almost everything that I knew at that point, and stopping it was causing more harm than good. So I decided, when I eventually got to the point where my logic started to kick in, I'll take a shower and go to work. I'll take a shower and go to church. There were times, in fact, there were days when I had to do my shower when I got back. Days when the biggest motivation I had came when the bus was going to leave in 10 minutes. So the only way I was going to make it to work was to get up and to just brush my teeth and put a few things in my bag, fragrances, deodorant, etc., and just hop on. And then on the way, I could just put some music on and it would lighten up my mood, say hello to people. And now I'm at work and I'm delivering. And I didn't even know that I could do it before I took the first step. And you may not be able to do every single thing that you could do before the grief, but you can certainly build while you grieve. In my case, I suffered demotivation and I couldn't make videos as I was doing at the time because I couldn't bring myself to do it. But I could do things like show up and go to work, and it made me proud of myself. It encouraged me to try again the next day. So you may not be able to do every single thing that you could do before then, but when you find the motivation to do one or two of the things that make you you, do them. And the harsh reality, on top of everything that I've discussed, is that time will not wait for you. Time does not wait for you to heal before it progresses. You would blink and realize, wow, the world has moved on. Everyone else has moved on. Everything has progressed but me. And that's why I encourage building to the best of your ability while you grieve. I think that you can. You are stronger than you realize. I had to learn it the hard way that we're stronger than we realize as human beings. We have capacity for much more than we allow ourselves to recognize. And by the end of the exercise, you would have built a fantastic version of yourself. When you go through something and it puts you in a zone where you feel like no one else but you understands what you're going through, it allows you build the capacity to help other people. It allows you to love and to feel and to experience differently. And that, I think, is the true power. I'm empowered, and hopefully not to go through this again or anytime soon, but I'm empowered, I believe, to help someone. I'm empowered to make this video. I'm empowered to make statements like, everything happens for a reason. It's not always correct. I'm empowered to know that not everyone who wants to be there is truly being there, because I've experienced it and I've gone through it. You can keep the person alive. You can honor the memories, their legacy. People have started foundations in the name of people that they lost. I know a sickle cell foundation, for example, that goes on, and I'll put it up. It goes on because a family lost a dear one to that situation, and that's a way to keep the person alive. I keep my mother alive. I think I keep her alive when I talk. When I hang around my aunties, they say things like, oh, you're picking your words one by one. You're picking it like your mommy. You're doing spray like your mommy. I think I'm keeping her alive to the best of my ability. I still love my mom. I'm not in pain, or it's not like when it first happened. It's just that I've now found a way to deal with it without hurting myself, without stopping my emotions from being processed, and just generally feeling good. Plus, it's not time to regret anything. I was wishing that I had more time. I was wishing, because I became my mother's sister. I had just moved from being my mother's daughter to being her sister at the time that I lost her. So I felt like time was not enough. But time will never, ever be enough with someone that you love anyways. Like the Maya Angelou saying goes, you only do better when you know better. You are going to act 16 when you are 16. And then when you become 25, you can now act 25. So there's no room for regrets. You did the best that you could do. I'd really love to hear any relatability, any experience that may be similar to the source that that I've shared. Just again, because you never know who needs to read or hear what you're talking about. But please share with me and do subscribe. I love you all, and I'll be in your face again. I'm back to making videos, by the way. Hello. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you around in my next video. Bye.